Let me just get my crystal ball. Hang on.
Yeah,
Some
yeah. G'day team, welcome to the Feel Good Blueprint, where I aim to bring a little bit of goodness out of the world and bring it straight to you. Now I've decided to kick this off with some isolation intellect interviews. Now I'm going to be talking to some people that I know in my life that I found really interesting and want to share with you and sort of see what they're up to at the moment and pick their brains on some other interesting subjects too, from health, wealth and well-being all the way through the environment. Now my first guest is a guy called Chris Raine from Hello Sunday Morning. Now I've known Chris for over 10 years and I actually went to uni with him and lived with him on the Sunshine Coast. And around that time, he had started his year without drinking. He decided to stop and abstain from drinking and blog about his experience. Now, along the way, he asked some people to join him on this movement, and he decided to call it Hello Sunday Morning. You can imagine the meaning behind that. I was one of the first people he asked as well, and there was some resistance from me to begin with. Really deeply woven into the Australian culture of drinking is this resistance and almost a judgment of people that don't drink. And at the time, being in our 20s, and it was really difficult to understand that. Anyway, a long story short, I came along on the journey with him eventually and did 3 months, and it was really, really life-changing actually. And Chris has helped thousands of people since then across the world to undertake this experience. With Hello Sunday Morning and now with his app Daybreak, he's really built an incredible platform for people to not only talk about alcohol addiction, but also addictions of other sorts as well. Now, Chris has gained some really incredible media exposure, won a range of different awards, and he also finished his MBA at Oxford a couple of years ago, and I was able to catch up with Chris at that time as well. So a really special guy, and he's looking towards some different things in the future. So I catch up with Chris to talk about that. And yeah, it's just a great all-round chat. So I really look forward to sharing that with you. All right. Chris from Hello Sunday Morning and one of my very good friends. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me. I'm thrilled to have you on the Feel Good Blueprint.
My pleasure, Simo. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So it's a very interesting time at the moment. Obviously, we've got lockdown in a lot of different areas. I'm not going to mention the thing that we're going to be talking about. I'm not going to use that word. We're going to take this opportunity to take some time to talk about what we've been doing.
Voldemort.
What you've been doing. Yeah, Voldemort. Let's call it Voldemort. And just really take some time to talk about what we've been up to. So thank you so much. We were talking before about a really interesting time it's been for you in particular, and with Hello Sunday Morning and what's going on, I suppose, for people at home. Can you just elaborate a bit more on, like, for those that don't know what Hello Sunday Morning is, and then what's been happening at this time of this pandemic?
Sure. So Hello Sunday Morning started 10 years ago when I took a year off from drinking and wrote a weekly blog about that experience, and then invited a few of my friends to join, of which you were one, to take some time off and share their experience too, as a way of having a conversation about our drinking culture and our own relationship with alcohol as people within that culture. And so that was 10 years ago. And then over the ensuing decade, it grew into something that's now supports people all over the world, tens of thousands of people each year, taking a break or quitting. And we do that through the application of technology. So we have a program called Daybreak that anyone can access to talk to other people going through the same challenge and share in the communal experience of that particular difficulty, of changing the way you drink or maintaining sobriety, and then also have access to clinicians, so drug and alcohol counselors, when you need that extra support. So it's been a 10-year journey, probably now more than ever with the closure of face-to-face services. It's been something that people have really picked up. So we're starting to see registrations increase, and we're starting to see a real need for online tools where normally you'd have online and offline. So we're working with face-to-face providers around supporting people that would normally go there. So it's an interesting time and an exciting time for innovation, but one that is really an anxious time for a lot of people. We're seeing massive increase in purchasing of alcohol, and that's leading to increases in consumption, but not the problems yet. So we're expecting a kind of crisis within a crisis in the next month, when people have picked up a lot more drinking habits and it's kind of stuck with them, and also no real way to get out of them because you're at home with the same habits. And so this is where we are really focused on.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because before as well, we were talking about, even in my personal experience, I did it my own HSM myself. I just finished it about 2 weeks ago, and I'm back having some drinks again, and I'm looking at like alcohol shelves for the first time in 3 months, and seeing the bear here in the UK. And to your point, yeah, I get a feeling that consumption is way up across a lot of different regions. And like you say, it's really interesting to understand that the curve is going to increase quite significantly, and that's where you guys are really important. What's sort of some key tips that you would give to people that are struggling right now at home and are sort of maybe looking towards a drink as a way of solving things?
Well, firstly, it's understandable. We, use things to self-medicate. For me, it's less alcohol now; it's more food. Like now, I'm not getting exercise. I'm eating a lot more sugary, salty, fatty foods, and we have these things. Could be cigarettes, could be drugs, could be gambling, social media, even. These things are all around us, and there are large companies that are incentivized to make sure that they're there for us when we need it. And so probably the most important thing is to realize and do as best as we can to be mindful that we're using these things for these reasons. And if things feel uncomfortable, or we're finding it difficult to deal with the anxieties or the pressures of being with our loved ones, and not having an escape from that, and here's the tool to escape from it, just to be mindful that that's why we're using it. And secondly, I think now more than ever, we need to be vigilant on how easy those habits are to pick up. We're in the same context all the time. So it's so easy just to, the alcohol is just in the cupboard just to drink. We don't have to go to work where there's time away from it, and that's just not a possibility. So to be extra vigilant of being careful about those habits and trying to adapt to something healthier, I think is really critical. And I think also probably culturally, I think to notice, as when there's like a, hashtag day drinking, and like there's a conversation around using language to justify or validate those particular behaviors, and just to kind of be conscious of the fact that we do that to make ourselves feel better about it. But really underneath that is a sense of anxiety or kind of fear of of new changes and difficulties ahead. So that would be my kind of three things. One is, being mindful, and really kind of really thinking about why we're using it. And probably that's the most important thing, actually. If you could just do that, and come through the other side having a deeper understanding, that'd be a good outcome.
Thanks. That's really good advice. And then when I think about, the evolution, I've been a close follower of HSM from the start, and the evolution into the services involved with Daybreak now. Just on that, what can people do if they are feeling a little bit stuck right now, and to engage with something like an app like Daybreak or your services? What's the first thing they can do?
So you go to the app store and download
Easy.
it.
Love it.
It's it's free for all like in Australia. The government pays for it, so it's accessible. And overseas, it's $12 a month to access it, free for 2 weeks if you just need a quick kind of help. So I think, yeah, and it's probably really useful if you get, you've got 2 weeks of really actually chatting to someone that has a lot of experience with thousands of other people that are going through this challenge, just to have a conversation with someone to kind of personalize and put into context your own relationship with alcohol and what you want. And maybe it's not, quitting at all. Maybe it's cutting back, or maybe it is quitting and just having a plan over a longer time. It really depends on you as an individual.
Cool. Very good. And then for you, Chris, personally, we're also discussing that you've had some time in the cocoon as well, like everyone. What have you been doing with your time?
I think what I've found the whole experience interesting is because when I was working, we had, in the office, I'd actually work from home kind of 2 or 3 days a week, and no one would know where I was, and so it was really good because I could get some really focused work done, and I really love that. And now everyone knows where I am all the time because I'm at home, and that has made me realize how, I thought I would be, how we're kind of doing with people doing Zoom lunches and stuff like that. And we started doing that, but I'm kind of sick of Zoom, to be honest. So trying
we are talking on Zoom. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's just, but this is how we're connecting. And now it's just, the way it is. But trying to peel away from the laptop, I've found quite difficult actually. But I'm trying to do that more and more, trying to, read more and more than just switch onto social media or Netflix or something like that. So I've bought a heap of books on my Kindle to get into. So I'm loving that. Really kind of digging into a particular area of work around capitalism and addiction that I've kind of downloaded a whole thing. So
anything you can recommend?
Kind of
book-wise?
Yeah, there's this new book that I've just started called Deaths of Despair, which is written by a couple of Princeton professors, and they look at how mortality rates in the US are actually going up. So, and life expectancy is going down for the first time ever at an increasing rate due to alcoholism, due to opioid epidemic and suicide in non-Hispanic white males particularly, but non-Hispanic Americans. So it's this real change in the culture, and their argument is that that's the product of a multi-payer health system. So, in the UK, you got the NHS. In Australia, we have our single payer system, and that means that people can access healthcare pretty quickly and cost efficiently. And in the US, it's very different, and that leads to actually worse outcomes, significantly worse outcomes. So I'm kind of really interested in that, how corporations, which are ultimately behind the kind of the private equity companies behind the health system in the US, how they actually create more problems, even though they're supposed to cure them. And that really interests me because I think about alcohol, and I think, the last 10 years have been working on a particular issue, which is that when someone has an issue, making sure that there's universal coverage as best as possible for someone to get help. And that problem is really important, but it's a kind of small part of a really, it's a really big part of a really small part of the issue. The much larger piece is how companies are incentivized to addict people to their products and don't pay for the externalities that they create. So it's a real kind of issue that I'm really interested in.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I have to check that out. I can't speak for all businesses, but the one that I work for is really focused in on the corporate social responsibility piece, but also the mental health aspect as well. So we've got access to free Headspace, the app, the meditation app. They've got mental health first aiders in the company now. So I could say with certainty that there's a few companies that are definitely doing their part to really aid and assist that. But yeah, from what I've seen as well, there's also this corporate social responsibility for some of these huge pharma, huge drug companies, big alcohol companies to show responsibility as well. So that's a super interesting aspect.
Yeah, we're going to this new world. We're going like this, post-corona world will be fascinating to see how companies do business again. And there's these massive um, government debts that will somehow need to be paid, and somehow need to be paid in ways that we probably haven't thought of, and changes will happen, and that's really, I think, really scary, but also really exciting, because I think there's a lot of things about the world that could be better, and mental health is a massive one. And yeah, I think it'll be an interesting in the second half of this year, and the coming 5 years will be a kind of fascinating time to be alive.
Yeah, agreed. I see like a lot more people going back to basics, and I think it's really fantastic. You're seeing people be more self-resourceful at home. People are having to cook their own meals. You see all these videos of people getting their quarantine cuts. I got one the other week, bit of a shave of the head, and you're seeing like you look at like the most ordered products on Amazon at the moment. It's like hair clippers and all these things that people didn't have because they
Yeah.
could have that. They could outsource that service and pay for that service before. So I think that aspect is really interesting. People are going out for walks a lot more, appreciating the more basic things in life. We go for a walk here in London along the River Thames. It's quite close to where we are. And we look up at all the flats, and it's very European at the moment in that people are hanging outside their balconies, chatting, neighbors are chatting, they're helping each other. So it's a really interesting time
Yeah.
that we've not seen for so long. I don't know how long. And yeah, but the post Voldemort era, can we foster some of these really positive things, and can we pull out the best bits and bring them into the future? There is some really exciting points about it, despite some of this terrible data we're seeing on the core problem. What will come out
Yeah.
of this?
It,
And this
it,
is something
yeah.
that I suppose for futurists, even like yourself, to look at and understand, how can we make this even better?
Let me just get my crystal ball. Hang on.
Yeah,
It's on the back
yeah.
here.
Where is it? So,
I find
tell me.
like just even when, have you noticed that when you walk down the street, you see buildings almost for the first time, like buildings that you've walked past for years, not just the people in them, but the way they're designed, the flower beds, the like things like that. Because you
Yeah,
used to walk past it from A to B, which would be work or friends or pub or whatever, or wherever you're going, and now you're just stuck at A. So it's just, you're just doing loops back to A again, and noticing all the intricacies of what you explore out. It's like being a space explorer out, and then you come back again, and so everything is this gathering of data and imagery, and it's certainly one positive.
yeah. It's strange. I'm not a big fan of moving from A to B without, or A to A without purpose. Usually, if I'm on my bike, it's going to work and that kind of thing. But obviously, being going out for walks and noticing things definitely that I've not looked at before. And it is really interesting that sort of level of detail we're going to now, because there's not a whole lot else to do. And something you mentioned before, I know you're a massive avid runner or jogger. You've always loved that, and I've been on many with you. You were mentioning before that you've noticed a change at the moment with that, and how you're enjoying that.
Oh, have you been watching me?
Yeah. It was before we started recording.
I'm finding it hard. I've been listening, like I've kind of got myself out of the house and I've been running around the block. And I really have to mentally G myself up. Like I felt like kind of pre-Voldemort, I was doing like easily running, just waking up, going for a run. I'd like fit into my day. I loved it. But now I have to like pry myself from the computer screen and like, I like trudge down. Like it's this real psychological effort, which I'm trying to overcome. But at the moment, to be honest, I'm really struggling to kind of get the shoes on and get out there. And I make myself a deal. Like I listen to a Desert Island Disc podcast. So I like find a good one and I like shuffle around the block a few times.
Yeah.
And then I'm back. It's quite dire, to be honest. But my hope is that if I can like consistently do it, that the engine will pick up and I'll start to enjoy it at the moment. But I'm not in that phase yet. That's for sure.
It's interesting, the psychology of that is that like none of the parameters around you going for a jog have changed. It's just the feeling and the environment. That's something I've struggled with. Not having, I like to go to the gym. The gyms aren't open, so like we've literally got tote bags full of cans that we're filled up, and we're trying to use them as weights. Very very different way of doing things. Using the stairs in the stairwell of the flat to go up and down and do calf raises and things like that. And it's because it's so easy. I don't really actually want to do it.
Yeah,
I'd rather do something else.
Yeah, it's almost like you break your life in these rituals, and you go to the gym, and that's your gym space, and you do your thing, and you've got your rituals there. And now it's it requires making new things. And the other aspect to it is the accountability. Like even when you go to the gym, and even if you know the people there, there's like a level of accountability there that you're like, oh hey, there's no one saying, go for your run now, Chris. Like, it's a real weakness, I think, to need that accountability. But it's for me, it's a helpful thing to have other people. But I guess we're all kind of working it out. It's a major work in progress. So many different experiments going on.
Yeah. It's like, I like to put it, you need to get your daily dose. You need to get your daily dose of connecting with people, with your exercise. Those things are just necessities in order to keep, to keep your happiness levels up. And they're things we need to force ourselves to do. So I'm glad you're still doing it because I know how much you love it.
Yeah, thanks, man. It doesn't sound like it, but hopefully in a week I'll have a different tune.
Yeah. And then looking into like post June, I know you've got some things you're planning to change. What does Chris Raine sort of post June, looking towards the future 2021? What sort of things are you looking to achieve in the future?
Well, I think I had this plan that I'd finish some leaving Hello Sunday Morning as CEO, and after 10 years, and that was always planned for June, so that's still happening. And we have a new CEO about to begin, and everything's lined up for that. And the original plan was to head overseas, and so I don't think that's happening anymore. So probably a couple of months of reflection, and then and thinking about what next. I think like it's an interesting to start again, either starting something myself, which I think is probably more likely than going and working somewhere, but maybe going and working somewhere too. So I think trying to keep as nimble and as reflective as possible, sort of see what happens.
Very exciting. Look forward to seeing what happens next. Make sure you try and get a trip into London as well.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
I know. I mean, I was supposed to be there in April, and that's obviously not going to happen. But it'd be good to get back.
Yeah, we're supposed to be there in May, but obviously that's not happening. So I'll let you know if we get there later in the year as well.
Yeah.
Great. So I thought I'd wrap up just with a final bit of advice, if I can ask. What kind of advice would you have for anyone that is struggling at the moment, and what's one thing they can do to sort of improve their day or their week?
I think the thing that the most useful thing that I've found to help me is accessing therapy, accessing someone to talk to someone that has that is professionally paid and to help you deal with whatever you feel anxious about. And you can do that either with someone through telehealth now, or like, a professional psychologist, or, a counselor, or there's, plenty of programs, including our Daybreak, that you can access to talk about a specific thing. I think a lot of people, those services are out there, and I find them so incredibly valuable to find a professional and have a conversation with them about these things that often affect us so significantly, but then with their guidance you can shift your perspective, and it can help for the rest of your life, that you've kind of moved past that particular thorn. And so I think that would be the best thing to do to deal with the anxieties of all this.
Wonderful insight. Thank you. And then where can people go if they want to check out Hello Sunday Morning?
So yeah, if you jump online and go to hellosundaymorning.org, that's Daybreak's on there, and you can check that out too.
Great. Chris Raine, very dear friend of mine. I've been absolutely thrilled to have you today. Thank you so much for your insight and your time. And I'd love to get you on again in the future. But in the meantime, thank you so much.
Thanks, Sivo.
Cheers.